neurotransmitters such as acetylcholine. The transmission of impulses along the nerve fibers is characterized by changes in the electrical potential and anionic charge. Now we're talking about reflex or involuntary action. Reflex action is a rapid, innate, automatic response to a stimulus which does not involve the brain for its initiation. Have you just been in a place, you just stood, you've forgotten yourself, and you are just unconscious, so to say, and something just touched you and just jump up? That's a reflex action. You didn't think about it, it didn't go through your brain. So that is what is called reflex action. For this action to be accomplished, the nerve cells must receive impulses from the receptors and in turn hand them onto the effectors. Examples of involuntary action include the blinking of your eyes. Just maybe there is a fly that is coming, just blink the eye, or you just have a bright ray of light, just blink the eye. That's an example of involuntary action. The jerking of your knee is also another example of involuntary action. Salivation is also an involuntary action. Then sneezing, you just sneeze without thinking about it many times. Coughing is also an involuntary action. Then secretion of glands. These are examples of involuntary action. A reflex act is the nervous pathway along which impulses travel from the receptor to the effector in a reflex action in order to bring about a response. The path is as follows. You have the receptor organ to the sensory neuron, then you have the intermediate neuron, then the neuron in central nervous system to the motor neuron, then to the effector organ, the sense organs. Sense organs are organs which receive stimuli, and with the help of the brain, the message is received and interpreted. So the sense organs receive stimuli, and with the help of the brain, the message is received and also interpreted. The sense organs, we have the nose, the hair, the eyes, your tongue, and the skin. 5 of them. Nose, hair, eyes, tongue, and the skin. The skin of farm animals has been described as the largest organ of the body because it covers almost all the parts of the body, or covers all. The skin covers every part of the body, so it's the largest organ. It covers the outer surfaces of all animals. Then it is made up of 2 layers. We have the epidermis and the dermis. The epidermis is the outermost layer and it is made up of 3 layers. We have the conified layer, the granular layer, and the Malpighian layer. The conified layer is the outermost layer of the epidermis. It is made up of flat, hard, scaly cells, and the cells of conified layer are dead. Just as it's the outermost, and the cells are dead. So you don't have any living cell in the conified layer. Then the next layer is the granular layer. It contains living cells, where active division of cells take place. These cells replace the cells of the granular layer, which in turn are replacing the cells of the conified layer, which are constantly being worn out. So when the cells of the conified layer goes, then the cells of the granular layer replaces it. Then the third layer of the epidermis, we have the Malpighian layer. It contains granules of pigments called melanin. Melanin is responsible for the skin color, and it also prevents the penetration of a lot of violet rays from the sun. The Malpighian layer also contains another pigment called keratin. So in the Malpighian layer, you have melanin, and then you have keratin. Keratin is responsible for the toughness and the flexibility of the skin. So 2 pigments in the Malpighian layer, melanin and keratin. In the dermis is the true skin, and it is located below the epidermis. Embedded in the dermis are connective tissues with many elastic fibers, blood capillaries, sense organ, sweat gland, sebaceous gland, and erector muscles. The blood vessels carry blood which bring food and carbon dioxide to the dermis and epidermal cells, as well as remove waste. The blood vessels also distribute the waste. The sensory nerve endings in the dermis detect different stimuli such as pain, pressure, cold, heat. They detect different stimuli. The sweat gland excretes sweat, which helps in cooling down of the body. Then also in the dermis, you have the hair shaft embedded in the hair follicle, which new hair grows. The hair has its roots, or what we call the papilla, from which it grows out and is supplied with digested food and some blood vessels. Opening into the follicle are flax-shaped sebaceous glands or oil glands, which produce a greasy substance called sebum to coat the hair and skin, thereby keeping the skin soft, lubricated, and waterproof. The coiled sweat glands open to the outside through the sweat pore. Through this sweat pore, salt, urea, and water are excreted from the body. Near the base of each ear are the rectal muscles, which contract and make ear stand up. Then they relax and the ear is slant. What functions do the skin have? First, protection. It prevents excess water loss from the body. It prevents mechanical inner injury. Then the pigment, melanin, absorb ultraviolet ray from the sun, which is harmful to the body. Then the conified layer prevents entry of bacteria, germs, and pathogenic organisms into the body. The skin also contains sensory nerves, which are sensitive to stimuli of heat, touch, cold, pain, or pressure. They pick up impulses and transmit them to the brain for appropriate actions. Then the skin also performs the function of excretion, in the sense that excess water, CO2, salt, and urea are carried to the sweat gland by the blood as waste products, and they are expelled through the sweat pores. The skin also regulates the body temperature. Animals are divided into two main groups based on their temperature control. We have the homothermic or endothermic, or what we call the constant temperature animals. They are usually described as warm-blooded because they can maintain a fairly constant body temperature irrespective of the environmental pressure. So they are called constant temperature, endothermic or homothermic animals. And examples of such, we have birds and mammals. They are warm-blooded animals. While we have the other poikilotomic or ectothermic animals, and they are usually described as cold-blooded because their body temperature changes with the fluctuation in their environmental temperature. If the environmental temperature is cold, so their blood is cold. If it is hot, then it is. So, example of such animals, cold-blooded animals, we have fish, we have reptiles, and all invertebrate animals. Now, we'll be talking about the kidney. The kidney is responsible for excretion as well as an osmoregulatory organ. The kidney is an excretory organ, at the same time is an osmoregulatory organ. The composition of the blood determines the reabsorptive activities of the kidney. The osmotic pressure of the blood, as well as water and salt reabsorption, are influenced by hormones. The osmoreceptor cells at the base of the pituitary gland in the hypothalamus of the brain are sensitive to and are stimulated by a rise in the osmotic pressure of the blood, especially when the blood becomes dehydrated, e.g. on a hot, dry day, or when large amount of salt is consumed. When the receptors are stimulated, a hormone is released and conveyed via the bloodstream to the kidney, where it causes nephron to increase its reabsorption of water. This leads to the production of a more concentrated urine, and the osmotic pressure of the blood is lowered to its original value. Likewise, when the osmotic pressure of the blood falls, this often happens when the animal has taken a large quantity of water, or less water has been excreted from the skin, such as we have on a cold day. The osmoreceptors will be less stimulated than before. Then less hormone will be produced, which will lead to the osmotic pressure of the blood and the tissue fluid to rise. Diuresis is the production of copious flow of water in the urine. The action of hormone is to counteract this condition. So the hormone is known as antidiuretic hormone, ADH. The antidiuretic hormone regulates water content of the body, water content in the blood, by increasing the permeability of the collecting ducts to sodium ions and increasing water reabsorption. A person whose pituitary is faulty fails to produce the ADH, that's the antidiuretic hormone, and eventually the person produces large quantities of dilute urine and has to make good the loss by drinking a lot of water. When the antidiuretic hormone is not functioning, then you begin to urinate uncontrollably. So you become dehydrated. That person becomes dehydrated. So he has to drink a lot of water to make for the excessive excretion of urine that is happening in his body. And this condition is called diabetes insipidus. What functions do the kidney have? First, it removes nitrogenous waste products, especially urea, from the